You need to move that eyesore immediately, or I'm having it towed. That's what HOA Karen screamed at my wife while blocking our daughter's medical transport van. The same van that keeps our 12-year-old alive. But here's what Karen didn't know. 3 hours earlier, I'd been elected the new HOA president. And I had her violation reports going back 6 months sitting on my desk. This woman was about to learn the hardest lesson of her entire life. If you're enjoying this already, smash that like button and subscribe because this story gets wild. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. I love to hear about it. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare actually started. We moved into Meadowbrook Estates 2 years ago. Beautiful neighborhood, great schools, quiet streets. My daughter Emma has a rare condition that requires regular medical equipment and twice-weekly dialysis treatments. We'd specifically chosen this house because it had a larger driveway and the HOA rules seemed reasonable, or so we thought. Linda Ashford, mid-50s, blonde highlights that cost more than our monthly grocery bill, and the kind of smile that never quite reaches her eyes. She'd been on the HOA board for 7 years and treated our neighborhood like her personal kingdom. It started small. Notes on our door about our trash cans being visible from the street even though we brought them in within the allowed time frame. Complaints about our lawn being a quarter-inch too high. Citations for my wife's car being parked improperly when it was literally just in our own driveway. But 3 weeks ago, Linda crossed a line that she could never uncross. Our medical transport company had just started providing Emma with a specialized van service. It's equipped with a wheelchair lift, medical monitoring equipment, and it's literally a lifeline. They arrive at 6 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's when Linda decided to make her move, but what she did next. It still makes my blood boil just thinking about it. It was a Tuesday morning. I'd already left for work. My wife Sarah was getting Emma ready for her treatment. The van pulled up right on schedule. That's when Linda appeared. Sarah told me she literally parked her Mercedes SUV perpendicular across our driveway, blocking the van completely. "Excuse me," Sarah called out, holding Emma in her arms. "We need to get through. This is a medical transport." Linda stepped out of her vehicle, designer sunglasses on, coffee cup in hand like she was the star of some reality show. "I don't care what it is," Linda said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Commercial vehicles are not permitted in this neighborhood before 8 a.m. It's in the bylaws. That thing is an eyesore, and you people need to learn to follow the rules like everyone else. You people, let that sink in." Sarah tried reasoning with her, explained that Emma's treatments can't be rescheduled. Her medical team operates on a strict schedule. That delaying her dialysis even by an hour could be dangerous. Linda literally laughed. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before moving into a community with standards. Now move that monstrosity, or I'm calling a tow truck." The driver, a kind older gentleman named Marcus who'd been transporting Emma for weeks, tried to de-escalate. He showed Linda his medical transport certification, explained the situation. Linda pulled out her phone and started filming them, accused Marcus of harassing her. Said she felt threatened. My wife was in tears. Emma was confused and getting distressed, and Linda. She just stood there with that smug smile. Eventually, they had to call another service, which took 90 minutes to arrive. Emma missed her appointment window. We had to pay out of pocket for an emergency dialysis session that afternoon, $3,200 that insurance wouldn't cover. But Linda wasn't done, not even close. The next day, we received an official HOA violation notice. $500 fine for unauthorized commercial vehicle on property. Linda had documented everything with photos, timestamps, the whole 9 yards. I was furious. I immediately requested a hearing with the HOA board. But here's the thing, Linda had her cronies on that board. They'd been running the HOA like their personal club for years. The hearing was a joke. Linda presented her case with printed bylaws, highlighted sections, a whole presentation. When it was my turn to speak, I was interrupted every 30 seconds. "Mr. Patterson, we understand your daughter has special needs, but rules are rules. Perhaps this neighborhood isn't the right fit for your family's situation. We have to think about property values." That last one, property values, that's when I saw exactly what this was really about. They didn't care about bylaws. They didn't care about community standards. They just didn't want to see evidence that a disabled child lived in their precious neighborhood. The board voted 4-1 to uphold the fine. The only dissenting vote came from Robert Chen, a newer board member who looked absolutely disgusted by the whole proceeding. But it gets worse. Thursday morning. Same thing. Linda blocked the van again. This time she'd recruited 2 of her friends to witness the violation. She filed another complaint. Another $500 fine. Sarah broke down that night. She was scared to schedule Emma's treatments, scared that we'd be harassed again. Scared that the stress was affecting Emma's health. I held my daughter that night while she asked me why the mean lady hated her. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to run away. I wasn't going to let Linda Ashford bully my family out of our home. I was going to do something I'd never considered before. And Linda had absolutely no idea what was coming. Quick pause. Are you Team Patterson, or do you think HOAs should be able to enforce their rules no matter what? Let me know in the comments, and if you're still watching, thank you. Hit that subscribe button because this story takes a turn that nobody, especially Linda, saw coming. Remember Robert Chen, the board member who voted against the fine? I reached out to him privately. We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over. I'm glad you called, Robert said. I've been wanting to say something for months, but look, Linda runs that board like the mafia. Cross her, and she make your life miserable. He told me everything. Linda had been using the HOA as her personal vendetta machine for years. Anyone she didn't like got targeted. The family with the teenager who played music, 17 violations in 6 months. The elderly couple who couldn't maintain their yard perfectly, threatened with liens. But here's the thing, Robert leaned in. Elections are coming up in 2 weeks. Board president, treasurer, and 2 member seats are all up for grabs. Linda's been president for 4 years, and she thinks she's untouchable. That's when it clicked. I went home and did something I'd never done before. I actually read the HOA bylaws. Cover to cover, all 87 pages. And oh whoa, did I find some interesting things. Turns out, Linda had been violating rules left and right, her own rules. She had a shed in her backyard that was 2 feet over the allowed height. She'd painted her front door a color that wasn't on the approved list. Her landscaping included plants that were specifically prohibited. But that wasn't even the best part. The bylaws stated that any homeowner could nominate themselves for board positions up to 48 hours before the election. And any homeowner in good standing could vote. You just had to show up to the meeting. Here's what Linda had been doing. She scheduled election meetings on weekday afternoons and most people were at work. She'd send notices out with minimal advance warning. Usually, only 15 to 20 people out of 200 plus homes would show up, and they were all her friends. The bylaws also said that any major HOA decision including fines over $250 required a vote by all homeowners, not just the board. Linda had been operating outside the bylaws for years, and nobody had called her out on it. Until now, I spent the next week doing something Linda never expected. I went door to door, met my neighbors, really met them. And what I discovered made me realize Linda wasn't just targeting my family, she'd made enemies everywhere. To Johnson's, Linda had fined them $1,500 for parking their work truck in their own driveway. Mike Johnson is a plumber, that truck is his livelihood. The Ramirez family cited for excessive noise and their kids were playing basketball at 4 p.m. on a Saturday. The Taylor's elderly couple, who got threatened with a lien because they couldn't afford to replace their roof on Linda's timeline. Mrs. Peterson, a widow, fined for having her grandson's car parked on the street during his 2-week visit. I documented everything, took notes, made copies of violation notices people had kept, but I found the smoking gun. One of my neighbors, Janet, worked at the same country club as Linda's best friend. Over coffee, Janet mentioned something interesting. Linda had been bragging about cleaning up the neighborhood. She'd specifically mentioned wanting to drive out certain families that didn't fit the image of Meadowbrook Estates. She'd mentioned my family by name. I had her, not just on the bylaws violations, not just on the improper fines, but on targeted harassment. I filed my nomination for HOA president at 4:57 p.m. on a Thursday, exactly 47 hours before the election meeting. I also helped Mike Johnson nominate himself for treasurer, and got 3 other neighbors to run for the open board seats. Then I did something that I knew would drive Linda absolutely crazy. I sent out a notice to every single house in the neighborhood, hand-delivered, The notice explained the election, the time, the importance of showing up. I included a simple breakdown of everything Linda had been doing. But I didn't stop there. I also went to the local newspaper. Small community paper, but they loved the story. HOA targets disabled child made the front page of the local section. Suddenly, people were paying attention. The election was scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m. By Friday night, I'd heard from 87 different homeowners who said they were coming. Linda had no idea what was about to hit her. Saturday, 1:45 p.m., the community center was packed. We'd expected maybe 50 people. There were 140 homeowners crammed into that room. People were standing along the walls. They'd brought lawn chairs. Linda walked in at 1:58 p.m. with her usual crew. She had this binder, probably her proof of how amazing her presidency had been. She was wearing what I can only describe as a TV lawyer outfit. Full power suit, heels clicking on the floor. The moment she saw the crowd, her face went white. "Well," she said loudly, trying to regain composure, "I'm so pleased to see such engagement from our community. Though I should note that some people here may not realize this is primarily a formality." "Actually, Linda," Robert Chen stood up. "Per the bylaws, this is a fully democratic election. Every homeowner present gets one vote." Linda's eye twitched. I'm not exaggerating, it actually twitched. The meeting was called to order. Linda tried to control the proceedings, but Robert, as the acting secretary, kept redirecting to proper parliamentary procedure. "Before we begin nominations," Linda said, "I'd like to present a report on my tenure as president." "Point of order," Mike Johnson called out. "Bylaws state that reports are presented after elections, not before." Linda looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "We moved to nominations." Linda nominated herself for president. Her friend Cheryl nominated her. "No one seconded my nomination faster than Mrs. Peterson," the widow Linda had tormented. "I nominate James Patterson for HOA president," she said, her voice steady. "And I've lived in this neighborhood for 23 years, and I think it's time for real change." The room actually applauded. Linda's face was turning red. "I hardly think someone who's lived here for 2 years and can't even follow simple parking rules." "Linda," Robert interrupted, "candidates don't speak negatively about other candidates during nomination periods. It's in the bylaws, page 34. You could have heard a pin drop. Then came the speeches. Linda went first. She talked about property values, maintaining standards, her dedication to the community. The usual stuff. When it was my turn, I pulled out my folder. "I'm going to be honest with everyone here," I started. 2 years ago, my family moved to this neighborhood because we thought it would be a safe, welcoming place for our daughter Emma. Emma has a medical condition that requires regular treatment. And 3 weeks ago, the current HOA president physically blocked her medical transport vehicle, causing her to miss a critical appointment." I could see Linda trying to interrupt, but Robert held up his hand. "But that's not why I'm running for president," I continued. "I'm running because I spent the last 2 weeks talking to many of you. And I learned that my family isn't alone." Linda has used her position to target anyone she doesn't like. Anyone who doesn't fit her vision of what this neighborhood should be. I pulled out the documentation, the Johnson's fines, the Ramirez family's citations, the Taylor's lien threat. I also learned that Linda herself has been violating the same bylaws she's been using to fine all of you. I projected photos on the screen: Linda's oversized shed, her non-approved door color, her prohibited plants. By Linda's own standards, she owes the HOA approximately $2,300 in fines. The room erupted. People were shouting. Some were laughing. Linda stood up, her face now completely red. "This is slander. This is a targeted attack. I have done nothing but serve this community." "Linda," Robert said quietly, "the photos are time-stamped and geotagged. The bylaws are public record. Everything James just presented is factual. Furthermore," I continued, "and this was the big one, I've reviewed the HOA financial records, which are supposed to be available to all homeowners. Linda has been scheduling elections at times when most people can't attend. She's been issuing fines without proper homeowner votes. And according to these records, we've been paying for her research trips to other HOA communities, trips that include 5-star hotels and expensive restaurants. I had the receipts. Literally, $8,400 in HOA funds spent on what's labeled as community research. Here's a charge for a spa treatment. Here's one for a designer store, all on the HOA credit card. Linda tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked around the room for support from her friends, but even they were staring at her in shock. "I'm not here for revenge," I said, looking directly at her. "I'm here because every family in this neighborhood deserves to feel safe in their own home. Every family deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And every family deserves an HOA that actually serves them, not one person's ego." The room went silent. "One more thing," I added, "if elected, my first action will be to rescind all fines issued without proper homeowner votes. My second action will be to update our bylaws to protect homeowners from this kind of abuse ever happening again. And my third action will be to ensure our HOA operates with complete transparency, every decision, every dollar, available for anyone to review." When I sat down, the room erupted in applause. But Linda wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. What she said next shocked everyone in that room. Linda stood up slowly, her hands were shaking. And then she just lost it. "You people don't understand what you're doing," she screamed. "I have worked for years to make this neighborhood respectable, to keep out the riffraff, to maintain standards." "Linda," Robert tried to calm her down. "No, you want to know the truth. I don't want medical vans here, I don't want work trucks. I don't want anything that makes this neighborhood look like some ordinary place. We're better than that." The room was dead silent. People were recording on their phones. "And you," she pointed at me, "you come here with your daughter and her problems, expecting everyone to accommodate you." "Linda, stop." Cheryl, her own friend, grabbed her arm. "Just stop talking." But Linda pushed her away. "Maybe if you couldn't handle living in a real community, you should have stayed somewhere more suitable, somewhere that caters to people like." "That's enough." Mike Johnson stood up. "We've heard enough. I call for an immediate vote." The vote wasn't even close, 127-13. I was the new HOA president. Mike Johnson became treasurer. He won his race 131-9. All three of the new board members we supported won their seats, our landslides. Linda sat down in her chair and didn't move. She just stared straight ahead while the room celebrated around her. My first board meeting as president was the following Tuesday. Linda didn't attend. She'd sent a resignation letter effective immediately. We got to work right away. First action, we rescinded every improperly issued fine from the past 2 years. That was $47,000 in bogus fines that families in our neighborhood didn't have to pay. Second, we voted to reimburse Linda's victims. Anyone who'd already paid unjust fines would get their money back from the HOA's reserves. Third, we launched a formal audit of the HOA finances. Turns out Linda's research trips totaled over $23,000. We forwarded everything to our attorney to determine if legal action was warranted. Fourth, we completely rewrote sections of the bylaws. Medical necessity vehicles, explicitly protected, work vehicles, allowed in driveways, kids playing, encouraged, not cited. Reasonable accommodations for elderly or disabled residents, made mandatory. But here's what mattered most to me. The following Thursday, Emma's medical van pulled up at 6 a.m. Marcus, the driver, looked nervous understandably. I walked out to meet him. "No problems today, Marcus," I said. "Not today. Not ever again." He had tears in his eyes. He told me he'd been doing medical transport for 15 years, and he'd never been treated the way Linda treated him that day. He said he'd almost quit because of it. Emma made it to her treatment on time. When she came home that afternoon, she was smiling. She'd drawn a picture of our house with a big heart on it. "The mean lady is gone, right, Daddy?" she asked. "Yeah, sweetheart, the mean lady is gone." As for Linda, we heard through the neighborhood gossip chain that she listed her house 2 weeks later. Moved out within a month. Last I heard, she's living in a different state. The local newspaper did a follow-up story. New HOA leadership brings compassion to Meadowbrook Estates. They interviewed several families we'd helped. Mrs. Peterson, the widow, said it was the first time in years she actually felt at home in her own house. "Our neighborhood is different now. People actually talk to each other. Kids play in the streets. We had a community barbecue last month, over 100 families showed up. That would never have happened under Linda. And you know what? Property values actually went up. Turns out people want to live in a community that treats them like human beings. Who would have thought? Here's what I learned from all of this. Power doesn't corrupt people, it reveals who they already are. Linda wasn't a bad person because she had power. She sought power because she wanted to control people. But here's the thing about bullies. They only win when good people don't stand up. For years, Linda got away with her behavior because everyone was too afraid or too tired to fight back. The moment we organized, the moment we actually showed up and used the systems that were supposed to protect us, she crumbled. If you're dealing with someone like Linda in your life, whether it's an HOA, a boss, a neighbor, whatever, document everything. Know your rights, find your allies, and don't be afraid to stand up. Because here's what I know for sure. My daughter deserves to live in a world where she's not treated like a burden. Where her medical needs don't make her less than anyone else. Every kid deserves that. And sometimes, making that world happen means standing up to the Karens. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who was abusing their power? What happened? Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We share stories about real people standing up to injustice, fighting back against bullies, and proving that ordinary people can make extraordinary changes. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's dealing with their own Linda. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Thanks for watching, everyone. This was a long one, but if you stuck with me through the whole story, you're the real MVP. Emma's doing great, by the way. She turned 13 last month. She's thriving. And every time that medical van pulls up to our house, I'm reminded why I fought so hard. Some battles are worth fighting. Until next time, stand up for what's right, look out for your neighbors, and never let the Karens win.